This is the Water Quality Association podcast, promoting the betterment of water quality around the world. And hello, I'm your host, Wes Bleed.
And so when you do get a rental department, if you don't have one now, handle those customers like golden eggs. I mean, they just, give them your absolute best service. They're huge.
That's Mike McGowan, owner of McGowan Water Conditioning in Mankato, Minnesota, talking about the value of recurring revenue. And welcome to the weekly podcast from the Water Quality Association, the leading voice of the residential, commercial, and industrial water treatment community. Find us at WQA.org. If you're a first-time listener or viewer, welcome. We're glad you're here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a show. That's the magic of podcasting. And be sure to share the podcast with someone you know. And a reminder, we feature our podcasts on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/@Water Quality Association videos to both see and hear our guests. In this episode, we take a look at growing your water treatment business through recurring revenue. It's not just one thing or one stream of revenue, right? There might be multiple streams. With us for the podcast is Mike McGowan, a third-generation water treatment dealer in Mankato, Minnesota. He's been active in both WQA and the Minnesota Water Quality Association for many years. Mike breaks down his revenue streams into four main buckets. He explains how he cultivates each one and how he has identified ways to generate consistent revenue on a recurring basis, month after month. Plus, we'll have our WQA tip. And now on to my conversation with Mike McGowan, all coming up on the WQA podcast. We're glad to have Mike McGowan with McGowan Water Conditioning on the show. Mike's been at WQA for many, many years as a member, past member of the board of directors, a past Regents Award recipient, and as owner of McGowan Water Conditioning, a third-generation water treatment dealer. So, Mike, thank you for taking time to be with us on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Wes. Appreciate it.
We wanted to talk about business in the podcast today and to talk specifically about recurring revenue, really. But I want to open it up and really be creative in terms of what businesses can do in these difficult times and these times of rapid change. How can they be looking at increasing profitability, increasing revenue streams, and all of that? And so to begin with, let's talk about your business. Let's talk about how you structure it, what the business model is like. And I'm sure it's probably very familiar to many of the folks who are listening and watching, but still, to sketch it out, I think it would be a good idea to start that way. So go ahead.
For starters, I guess we don't have a fantastic location, so we don't do a lot of retail, really. I mean, we go to the customer. So most of our work is off the back of a truck, so to speak, as I think a lot of folks are in this business. So our revenue streams really are out in the field. And of course, rentals. We have a lot of rental equipment, and that's huge. Yeah, huge for us. And we were talking about recurring revenue, and really these rentals and service contracts and so forth are a big part of that.
So tell me about the types of products and services that you offer.
So we're water softeners, of course, iron filtration. We have a lot of iron in our area, reverse osmosis systems, and then a little bit of specialty stuff, arsenic, tannins, those sort of things. There's not a lot of that. Iron bacteria is one that we're running across now more than we have, and I don't know why that is, but it seems to be cropping up. So, but for the most part, yeah, water softeners, iron filtration, ROs.
And people are finding you how? What would be the path that someone would take to knock on your door or pick up a phone or contact you on your website?
Well, I would think it is the website for the most part. We do radio advertising. We do a little bit of print advertising on some of the local city magazines. Some of the local municipalities have their monthly magazines and so forth. People seem to work, to like those magazines. We do a little bit of, it's not television, it's targeted ads on streaming. So streaming ads, meaning YouTube, Hulu, those sort of things. If folks are watching those channels, those are nice. You can target certain audiences, maybe income levels or, neighborhoods or, zip codes and stuff like that. So kind of the traditional radio and print, and then maybe what's a little more modern would be the targeted streaming ads.
And about what would be the percentages of the types of revenue that's coming in the door based on what you were talking about before, the softeners and the RO and some of those things? Percentages, not dollars.
Okay. Yep. I understand. I guess I forgot to mention that we do salt delivery as well. So we do a fair amount of salt delivery. So what we did a number of years ago is we broke the company down into departments. So we have our rental department, sales of new equipment, service, and salt delivery. So we kind of run a P&L for each of those 4 departments. And so you're tracking your expenses in those departments and then your revenue in those departments. So you get some idea of where you're making, how much you're making in each department, where it really comes in. So believe it or not, and I haven't looked at these in a while, but I did, knowing that we were going to talk about these, I did pull up. Our rental department is about 30% of our income. So it's absolutely huge. And it has been for years and years. I mean, really, when Mike Rapid started, they started in the exchange tank business where most people paid, a monthly service, and a lot of people have just rolled over into paying monthly to rent a water softener. And then our salt delivery is only about 10% of our revenue. And I've always known that, for us anyways, that salt delivery is not a huge moneymaker, but it's kind of a necessary evil. It'd be like a gas station not providing, the windshield washer fluid, at the gas pumps. I mean, I think salt delivery is just a big part of the business, and it's kind of a necessary evil, like I say. So I look at that, it's not a huge moneymaker, but hey, it's trucks out on the road. It's employees interacting with customers. So there's always that. It's always a feel good when you see folks and people see your trucks on the road. Our service is about 12% of our income, and then our sales is 45%. So sales of new equipment is obviously pretty large, but then, on the flip side of those things too is the cost. So if I look at, making almost 30% of our revenue off of rentals, but our cost of that is only 2.5% of our total cost of doing business. Now, those costs can get hard to really break down. I'll give you an example of one I kind of struggle with is advertising. So we just talked about, radio ads, print ads, and so forth. If I did a print ad specifically to salt delivery, I can burden 100% of that ad to the salt delivery department. But if you have a general radio ad that's playing, or you have, a feel-good ad that's in a magazine or in a, billing stuffer, where do you spread those dollars, those costs? And so what I kind of do is just look at an income level. So, salt brings in about 10% of our revenue. So I burden that department with about 10% of the cost of that, of advertising, phone, calls, your, electrical bill, and all these things. I mean, if you're going to break all of your costs out and split them across these departments, it's never a perfect science. So, however, your delivery trucks, so your trucks that just do salt delivery, it's easy to burden 100% of that cost of those 2 trucks goes into the salt department. So departmentalizing like this and kind of having, it's almost like you're running 4 businesses, has been really big in knowing where our income's coming from. And that, it makes it easier to track changes. As an example, speaking of changes, I think now it's probably been over about maybe the last 18 years, 20 years, we deliver about 50% less salt than we used to. And it's not because we have less salt customers. It's because we have metered water softeners. And, years and years ago when my dad, was all time clock based water softeners. And now we've had to push, by default, we put all of our units out at low salting. It's made a huge difference. And I actually like to brag about that a little bit. And I tell folks, hey, we sell about half as much salt as we used to, but we haven't lost any customers. And I think that's good for the environment. And I think it's good for customers in general.
So explain that just a little bit more for somebody maybe not quite as aware of how this all works. You're saying the metered softener is going to more effectively, more efficiently keep track of how much salt is needed. And so there's less salt ultimately being used.
Correct. Yep. The water softener is more efficient because it's, measuring the actual water used and only regenerating when necessary. Versus a time clock that maybe had to regenerate every 6 days or something, instead of going maybe every 10 days or whatever that family might need. And so metering water softeners or demand initiated regeneration, whether it's a meter or a sensor or something along those lines, is going to increase the efficiency substantially.
You talked about the 4 departments and the 4 revenue streams, kind of the 4 main pillars of the business. Now, did that evolve over time? And if so, how? How did that? Was it just more or less, hey, we just kind of stumbled into it? Or was there a plan, a bigger plan that led to all of these things?
Well, I had a business consultant years ago, Jody was her name, and she was the one that kind of brought me to that revelation. And she worked more in the HVAC industry where they really don't have rentals per se, but they had service contracts. So they would do yearly, maintenance on your air conditioning or heating, or even some people had their furnace filters and so forth on a program. And so they wanted to be they really wanted to break out what they were making on, sales of new units and service and so forth. And then in recurring revenue to some of those industries is kind of a new thing. If you've noticed the cost of refrigerator filters, you'll see that, refrigerator companies have learned that there's recurring revenue out there. They've never had that before. It never used to be a thing you could get in. And now they have something they can sell over and over. So when she saw how we were, lumping everything into one, income and expense report, it was her idea to break out into departments. And so really that's where it came from. It was not my idea. It's not how my dad did things, but I think we've done this. It's been at least 20 years, maybe a little more that we've been operating this way. And even our accountant was amazed. I remember, ironically, her name was Jody back then too, but that the two Jodys together, bringing this up, and our accountant was, had never thought of this either, and was just amazed by it. And it was a lot of fun to watch the numbers kind of shake out over the first few years. And of course, now you can track it and see a lot of history. So it's been really big. It's been really important for us.
So as we think about this more strategically going forward here, what are the things that you're thinking about in order to either increase each of those departments, those revenue streams, or perhaps add something more?
Well, I don't know. At this point, I don't really know what I would add more. We're already doing, we'll do folks that maybe have an iron filter that needs to be cleaned or serviced, say, every other year or every 3 years or something like that. And our computer system can, automatically generate tickets to remind of that. That's a nice recurring revenue for people that don't have rentals. Certainly trying to get some sort of a service agreement where you would come back. Reverse osmosis filter changes, of course, that's a really nice recurring service and something that brings value to folks. People certainly like that. As far as anything new coming down the road, nothing I can think of, quite frankly.
I would imagine that at WQA, as members get together, as you talk and as you go to some of the sessions at convention or mid-year, you're going to bump into folks with other ideas as well, would you not?
Yeah, certainly run into people with other ideas. And quite frankly, I'm not the first guy to come up with this either. I mean, I've certainly run into other people that departmentalize. And I think we may have done a class on this at boot camp 2 or 3 years ago, kind of more, specifically on this topic. And so, like I say, not the first one. I think to me, the bigger thing that I get at WQA is the connections. So I don't know that I've learned how to process my financials in some, new way per se. But certainly, like I mentioned, or I think I mentioned, we're seeing more iron bacteria. We're coming across tannins more often, arsenic, and so forth. And so, knowing people and knowing manufacturers and other, people in the industry, it's really nice to have connections when you do find this really odd case or this really hard water to, really hard nut to crack, is to have these connections that you can go to and find solutions. I really enjoy, being the third company in the door where somebody's had this competitor and they just can't seem to, make it work, and then to find that solution and to really work at it. I really enjoy that. And oftentimes I win because I know people, and it's not my, it's not my intelligence that did it. It was the fact that I knew somebody that knew, and that I really enjoy.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And, here we are recording this in the middle of the summer, but the Mid-Year Leadership Conference won't be too far away in September. I would imagine you're planning to attend, as you have in the past.
Julie and I just signed up last week. Yep. So I think within a few days of it opening. So definitely going to be there. And, I enjoy mid-year. It's a little quieter, although it's gotten substantially larger over the last maybe 5 or 6 years. I can remember when it was literally, 60 or 80 people. It was intimate would be the word. And so it's gotten substantially larger. And now that, we have, classes and meetings, and, it's way more than it used to be. So it's really pretty exciting. It doesn't have the trade show, as you know. So for people that have never gone, there isn't the trade show part of it, but still all of that networking, and just and other educational stuff. WQA is going to bring you up to speed on what they've been doing over the last half of the year. Those of us that are on committees and so forth are going to kind of catch each other up to speed. It's a good place to get face to face with people. So I always enjoy mid-year.
Yeah, and how about the interactivities? But it's gotten a little more interactive with table discussions and different things like that too.
Yeah, it certainly has, and that's a great part of learning from each other. Again, networking, finding out how other people are cracking that nut, so to speak, and sharing your knowledge, and sometimes just crying on each other's shoulders too. Sometimes being a business owner is a little bit lonely, and it's nice to be with your peers, people that can carry you through some tough times, or you have that connection that you can call, and kind of get some advice on something.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the challenges of some of the water challenges that you're looking at. Overall, how would you say business is going?
It's smooth. Our business is very smooth. We have slowed down since last year. However, it's been comfortable slowing down. I wouldn't say that we're certainly, it's not a bad thing. I'm not, not concerned about it, the market bottoming out or something like that. But it was really gangbusters. And I think it was for most of the industry. It's certainly when I was at, convention last year, a lot of folks, talked about it. We had all those supply shortages. I would have never guessed after, the pandemic and so forth that it would have been as busy as it was. And it's not what I predicted. So that's why I run a water conditioning company and not some sort of business analyst or, but so yes, we're a little bit slower, and it's been comfortable. It's nice. We have a clean shop. Our trucks are in great shape. So we have those sort of things to take care of. And of course, with our recurring revenue, if you do have that slow month, it really helps you through those bumps. And, and I can remember back in 2008 when a lot of, companies were furloughing and laying people off, and I was proud to have come through that, and no one's benefits got cut. They continued to have health insurance. They continued to have good trucks, and we're still paying for uniforms, and everything continued to flow. And a big part of that was that recurring revenue. It's huge. And so when you do get a rental department, if you don't have one now, handle those customers like golden eggs. I mean, they just, give them your absolute best service. They're huge. So without those things, and then even during COVID and so forth, it was to have that recurring revenue was really what carried us through all of these ups and downs. And they do say too, advertising to your current customers is the easiest way to get additional business. They're already doing business with you, assumably they already trust you. And to add on something else, I think it's simpler to add on to an existing customer than to go find a new customer typically.
Excellent ideas. Mike, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. And I hope
Absolutely.
you continue to have a good summer, and we'll see you soon.
Well, we'll see you at mid-year.
I was going to say at the Mid-Year Leadership Conference. Great. Mike McGowan, folks, on the WQA podcast. Our WQA tip, we have another round of instructor-led training classes coming up for anyone looking to earn their professional certification from WQA. It's a unique opportunity to learn from some of the best instructors in the industry. They can help lead you through the material and prepare you for the certification exam. Go to wqa.org/training. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Water Quality Association podcast, bringing you the latest insights and news from the association, our members, and outside experts to help you better serve your customer and grow your business. Learn more about water and water filtration at our consumer website, betterwatertoday.org, and learn more about professional certification, product certification, and how you can become a member of WQA at our website, WQA.org. Until next time, this is Wes Bleed. So long from the Water Quality Association.